The meeting of the Board of Regents, State of Iowa for April 20, 2023 will come to order. I'll begin by calling the roll. She made it just Regent Dunkel.
Here.
Regent Barker.
Here.
Regent Crow.
Here.
Regent Rouse.
Here.
Regent Bates.
Here.
Regent Lindemeyer.
Here.
Regent Boettger.
Here.
Regent Reiswick.
Here.
Regent Richards is present. We have a quorum and the meeting can proceed. Are there items the board members would like to remove from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Hearing none, a motion and second are required to approve and receive items on the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion. Nancy.
Regent Bates and Regent Dunkel is second. We're not quick enough. Is there any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Regent Bates,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Boettger,
Yes.
Regent Reiswick.
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. As we know, sometimes I have a statement to make and other times I don't. I do today. Last month, I announced that the board will establish a working group to study diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at Iowa's public universities. Regents Barker, Lindemeyer, and Rouse will lead this working group. They have been working with board office staff to come up with a structure and a process for how the comprehensive review will proceed. They also have been having conversations with the university presidents. While this review has not yet started and the specifics are still being worked out, here's what I can share at this point. We expect the review to take several months and will likely stretch into the fall semester. There will be multiple meetings. Faculty, staff, and students from the university will be included in the process. There will be an opportunity for anyone, whether it be members of the campus community or general public, to provide feedback to the working group via a web-based form. When the working group has completed its review, it will present its findings and any recommendations to the full Board of Regents at one of the board's public meetings. Tentatively, we have identified November 2023 as the meeting when the working group will make its presentation, but this could change. This is a very important topic, and the board looks forward to letting the working group create the process and do its work and present back to the board its findings. Thank you. I get to talk more. Nancy, yeah, I think it would be better if you, could you come up here and sit right here?
Nervous.
Teacher. I'm nervous. You are not. Whereas Nancy Boettger was appointed to the Board of Regents by Governor Branstad for a term beginning May 1, 2017, and her term will end on April 30th, 2023. And whereas she has served as the chair of the Board of Regents Academic Affairs Committee, which provided oversight of academic programs, faculty activities, admission standards, and student success benchmarks. And whereas during her time on the board, a successful searches were conducted for institutional leaders at Iowa State University and the University of Iowa, resulting in hiring of outstanding presidents at each university. Whereas during her time as regent, the board completed a historic 50-year, $1.165 billion public-private partnership, commonly called the P3, with the University of Iowa's utility system, and she also served as a member of the three-person group that reviewed and appointed strategic initiative projects for the university funded from the P3 endowment. And whereas during her tenure, the board approved hundreds of millions of dollars in capital projects at the Regents universities, including academic and student and residential and healthcare construction and other improvements. Whereas she was a member of the board's free speech working group, which met in 2020 and 2021 and provided recommendations adopted by the board to improve and strengthen the university's efforts in free speech. And whereas she served as a commissioner of the Western Higher Education Compact, an organization of 12 member states that strengthens post-secondary education through cost-saving initiatives and policy solutions informed by research and the expertise of regional leaders. And whereas, whereas she served as a member of the board's tuition task force in 2017, which involved multiple public meetings to discuss tuition and funding at the public universities. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Regents, State of Iowa, expresses its deep gratitude to Regent Boettger for her expertise and dedication, and publicly acknowledges her for her extraordinary service and contributions to the Board of Regents, its institutions, students, families, and all Iowans.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
So we have other things too.
Oh, wow, is that beautiful? Oh, thank you so much. Oh, it's been such a pleasure. Do I get to say anything? No. I can't even begin to tell you how much I've loved serving on this Board of Regents. You are all so wonderful. I mean, what a privilege to be with the fine minds and the great personalities and the just wonderful people in this room, both in the board office and the staffs on the university and the board members themselves. We are really close friends. We've walked through a number of issues in our lives together. We care about each other, and what a privilege it's been. I thank you all so much, and I just encourage you to keep up the good work. Man, I'm so proud of Iowa. I'm so proud to be an Iowan. I came from Illinois, and actually, it's Iowa State that brought me here. It all began here for the Boettger clan, and I have mixed emotions. I am excited about being a crazy old lady, and I think it'll be fun. We have a lot of fun things planned. I have my bracelet here. I have 16 grandchildren. They're all around Iowa. I love them dearly and love to be at their stuff. And it'll be easier. I'm always at their stuff, but I don't have to rush anymore. I think life will slow down a little bit. And thank you all so much. You mean so much to my life and all you guys back there. Thank you. Wow, that is gorgeous. Just so beautiful.
Have a picture taken after.
Okay, yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
At this time, I'd like to recognize institutional heads to report on recent activities of each institution. We will begin with President Wintersteen.
Special thank you to Regent Boettger and from your alma mater and from those great ag courses you took at Iowa State University. We will miss you here at the Board of Regents meetings and your service to the board and to Iowa State University, but we will continue to see you around Iowa and on Iowa State's campus. So thank you on behalf of all of Iowa State University. And welcome to all of our Regent members, board members to Iowa State University. We look forward to celebrating with you over lunch as we welcome our Regent Award winners at our luncheon today and celebrate their many accomplishments. So now I'll share a brief update about Iowa State University. The first part of my presentation focuses on how we're expanding Iowa State's innovation and entrepreneurial ecosystem through public-private partnerships. We recently announced a new partnership with Alliant Energy to build a multi-tenant collaboration facility at the Iowa State Research Park. The Alliant Energy Agriculture Innovation Lab will provide more than 85,000 square feet for our College of Agriculture and Life Sciences Digital Agriculture Innovation Team. It will also have space available for agricultural-based businesses that want to work with Iowa State on digital and precision agriculture. Over 70% of the building will feature high bay and lab space, which is a critical need for the research and development work being done by ISU's Digital Ag Innovation Team. ISU's Digital Ag Innovation Team is led by Matt Darr, Professor of Agriculture and Biosystems Engineering. You can see him pictured here. They specialize in developing agricultural technology and products, including smart sensors, controls, and machinery electronics. The team holds 70 patents, and more than 30 technologies sold worldwide contain intellectual property created by the Digital Ag team. Their work is responsible for the support and creation of more than 300 central Iowa-based ag technology jobs. And now, as part of our video series, Innovators of Iowa State, a very popular series, we're going to have a short video with Professor Darr, and Spencer is going to help me turn that on because I don't have the technology skills that Matt Darr has. Thank you, Spencer.
Yes, ma'am.
When it comes to partnerships and agricultural innovation, nobody does it better than Iowa State. Innovation-driven, data-driven, and service-driven. Maybe not. Our digital agriculture team excels in forging industry.
Try to juggle. Here we go.
If only I was more technologically skilled. It's fun to try new things.
start that over, shall we?
When it comes to partnerships and agricultural innovation, nobody does it better than Iowa State. Innovation-driven, data-driven, and service-driven. Our digital agriculture team excels in forging industry partnerships that unleash a wave of innovation that directly benefits farmers so they can work smarter every day. Dr. Dar, what challenges in agriculture are you working to solve?
Well, agriculture is an extremely complex system. We've been farming for thousands of years, right? We've been using data in agriculture for only a few years. Digital agriculture is the use of information and technology to help us make agriculture more productive, efficient, and environmentally sensitive. As an engineer, we don't sell tractors and combines through the university, but we can embed technology, our technology, with our corporate partners in a way that has a positive impact on growers. We have agronomists and engineers and computer scientists working together every day to solve challenges in digital agriculture. And then we work with industry partners who help us put that into practice and have a direct impact on growers here in Iowa and beyond.
You have a long-standing partnership with John Deere. What sets Iowa State apart in terms of working with industry?
When we partner with industry, we're bringing our thought leadership into their problems and we're helping them create solutions. So Iowa State and John Deere set up a sustainability demonstration farm this year. This demonstration farm is all about bringing technology into the solution for sustainability.
What is the impact of the work that you do?
Well, farmers in Iowa are using our technologies every single day. There are 30 products that are sold in agriculture today that came from our innovations. Farmers in Iowa have better yield data because of the innovations that we've developed and commercialized with partners. We're proud of the fact that herbicide drift is reduced globally because of our work. I feel very fortunate to work at a place like Iowa State University where we can truly deliver science into our communities and have a net economic output.
So that's just one way that we're communicating with our stakeholders, other partners about the work we do at Iowa State in our public-private partnerships to benefit farmers in Iowa, farmers all around the world. So next I want to talk about a partnership that we have with Alliant Energy, which is now expanding to include the Department of Energy. After receiving approval from the board in November of 2021, construction is starting on the Alliant Energy Solar Farm at Iowa State University. The 1.35 megawatt farm is expected to generate enough power for 230 homes, and provide electricity for our nearby farms. But this farm isn't just producing solar power. In the partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy, an Iowa State research team is going to test whether the farm can also be used to grow produce planted among the solar panels. They'll plant broccoli. I don't know how you feel about broccoli, but broccoli, squash, peppers, raspberries, strawberries, and they also plan to raise honeybees on the site and will plant pollinator habitat to support them. It's another project which is an example of how Iowa State's expertise in interdisciplinary research brings added value. The team includes scientists from a variety of fields, including horticulturalists, a bee specialist, electrical and computer engineers, and of course, an economist. The project is being supported by a 4-year, $1.8 million grant from the Department of Energy. Next, Iowa State is part of a new federal effort to increase industry-university partnerships. We were selected to host a site for the new Center for Soil Technologies, or called Soil Tech. We were selected to host this new center. It's supported by a 5-year, $3 million grant from the National Science Foundation. The center is part of a new NSF initiative to accelerate the application of basic university research to meet industry needs and enhance American innovation and develop a high-skilled, high-tech workforce. Jonathan Clausen and Carmen Gomes, both associate professors in mechanical engineering, are co-directing the ISU site. They're developing sensors like these pictured here on the left to advance soil health, plant nutrients, carbon capture, and pesticide mapping. Soil Tech has signed on 15 industry partners, including John Deere, Corteva, AgriScience. Partners are also include NASA, the U.S. Geologic Survey's National Innovation Center, and 3 other universities. In addition, Professors Clausen and Gomes are entrepreneurs. They're working to establish a startup company called NanoSpy that will bring to market biosensors that can quickly detect pathogens in food. I want to introduce you to a special group of Cyclone innovators. These are the top finishers in our 6th annual College by College Pitch-Off competition. The competition began with participants from all 7 colleges. From there, 25 students qualified for the final round, having just 90 seconds to pitch their company or concept. 28 awards were presented across all rounds of competition, totaling more than $30,000 in prizes. The overall winner for the best existing business was Carmen Schaefer, a senior in animal ecology. She's pictured here in the front row, far right, with her blue-tongued lizard. Can you see that? There you go. Carmen sells NutriCubes, which are pre-proportioned servings of blended ingredients for exotic animals. Evidently, an item that's in high demand. So, the best winners, the best new idea winners were Eugene Meyer and Dakota Belling. They're pictured in the back row in the middle. They won for their Boettger. This is an insect control applicator for large cattle herds. Eugene is a senior in industrial engineer and Dakota a senior in civil engineering. Pitch competitions are an excellent way to learn how to sell an idea. Students are also honing their innovative and entrepreneurial mindset by sharpening their communication skills, using creative and critical thinking, and building their confidence. Finally, we're very proud that Iowa State University just received a gold ranking from the Military Friendly Schools Survey. This indicates that ISU is in the top 10% best universities in the country for veterans and military-affiliated students. The recognition is large part due to the work happening at our military-affiliated student center located in the Memorial Union. The center provides academic support, assistance with scholarship and financial aid applications. It also provides a welcoming space to have weekly dinners, trivia nights, as well as study spaces where students can help each other with coursework. Veterans and students currently serving says the center is a space to create a community, and that community is crucial. That isolation is one of the biggest challenges in making the transition, that it's about belonging. It's about being with others so that they can find a place where they truly, truly belong at Iowa State University. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. It's always a pleasure to give you an update on Iowa State University. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Wintersteen. President Wilson.
President Richards for inviting us to give an update, and welcome to all of the regents here. And I want to say a special thanks to Regent Boettger for all she's done, including serve on the search committee that brought me here. So I have to say a special shout out to you for that. It's been wonderful to work with you. We're going to miss you deeply, and we'll carry on your values and your tradition and the things you care about as we work together to move these universities forward. So thank you. I'm going to give you a brief update, just like my colleague Wendy. It will be pretty brief. This is awards season. This is the time where we celebrate a lot of things that our faculty and staff and students do. So rather than pick a particular theme, I'm just going to highlight several awards and areas that we're very proud of today. But I'm going to start with something that got quite a bit of national attention, but I want to make sure you're all aware of it. This is a big announcement that was made recently. We've joined the STARS College Network. This is a network that's really focused on rural students across the country. And it's an exciting new initiative that will help encourage more rural students to go to college. You may or may not know that there's 9.7 million rural high school students in this country. And among them, only about 29% go on to college, whereas 40+% in urban areas go to college. So we know we've got a gap there and a lot of potential to get students from rural backgrounds to think about higher ed. This is a program that was launched by the Trott Family Foundation, and it's funded by a $20 million gift. And the Trott Family Foundation selected 16 schools nationally. Just to give you a sense of what company we're in, here are the 16 schools. There are only a few that are actually in rural areas and actually have great rural populations, and I'm really proud that Iowa is one of them. The program is one that we'll be working together with all of these institutions, and whoops, I've got to go back here. We'll be working with all of these institutions to target rural students and get them into workshops over the summer, provide them with advising, give them some scholarship support, and really help them think about college in their future. And what I'm really excited about is that, when you think about all these institutions that I just showed you, we probably have access to more rural students than a lot of these other institutions. So some people are nervous that we're going to encourage students to go to these other places. I'm actually thinking more students are going to come to places like Iowa and potentially maybe if you look there, you might see Ohio State, not very rural, but Wisconsin. So I think Iowa and Wisconsin are going to play big partnership roles in this collaborative. The other thing I want to just shout out is Brent Gage, who's our Associate VP for Enrollment Management. We would not be included in this if he weren't known nationally for someone who is on the front lines of enrollment management, and he was brought in by the Trott Family Foundation. If you're curious, Byron Trott is behind all of this. He grew up in a very small town in Missouri, and he decided after going to University of Chicago that this was a game-changing experience for him, both at the undergrad and grad level, and his success is due to somebody believing in him as a rural student. So now he's giving back in a way that I think is going to really be a game changer. So watch out. We'll have a lot more to talk about with this. And the foundation is hopeful that this funding will help encourage connections with legislators and other philanthropists to think more about how do we get more rural students to go to college. So. Another thing I wanted to just make you aware about is that we are doing great in the Fulbright area, which is another kind of competitive program for students. I'm talking now about Fulbrights for students. We rank in the top for the 7th year, which is really a competitive national program. These are opportunities for students to go abroad and study and do work in various different aspects of their interest. We had 17 Iowa students and alums selected this year, which puts us number 3 in the Big Ten in terms of numbers of Fulbrights, and number 21 overall across all universities in the country. And the Big Ten is important to point out because we're the 3rd smallest Big Ten institution. So to rank in the top 3 in terms of numbers on anything is really hard to do. But our Iowa students really competed well in Fulbrights once again. And that requires preparation with faculty and with staff and helping them think about what they want to do as part of these programs. We've got students in this year's cohort that want to teach English in other countries, that want to do public health research, that want to engage in creative writing projects. So 16 countries will be involved in our 17 students, and they'll go out and help change the world and wear the Hawkeye brand when they go. So Fulbright's a great sign of, I think, our undergraduate success and graduate success. Of course, we continue to work really hard on innovating on the healthcare side. Not only are we known for cochlear implants and the Ponsenti work for club feet, but we do a lot of other really important work every day. And we just opened a new cath lab as part of UIH Healthcare. It's a very non-invasive technique, which is something that needs to be made more available to patients across the country and across the state of Iowa. This is the most advanced technology out there now. It's very minimally invasive, and it helps diagnose and treat cardiovascular disease. So as we put up here, we have about 45,000 clinic visits and 4,600 catheter operations and procedures a year across UI Healthcare. So this is something we're going to be known for a lot, and I think people will be coming to us to study what we're doing and bring it to other places. Celebrating faculty excellence. This year, the provost and I have decided that one of the things we want to emphasize is rewarding our faculty more at the national and international level. So we're bringing together 80 of our top faculty for an event that we're going to honor their prestigious awards and even bring several of them over to the Pres-Res for dinner. What we want to do is really encourage more faculty participation in award processes. If you're familiar with the highest level awards, they don't just happen to people. You have to be strategic. You have to nurture faculty in getting lower level awards as they work their way through the system. You have to make sure their work is recognized across different professional associations. And so we're going to be much more strategic about that. When I first started in my role in the provost office at Illinois, we learned that Cal Berkeley had 2 individuals who were just full-time in the office of the provost working on making sure faculty get awards. So other institutions are way more strategic about this, and we're really modest in the Midwest, so we just need to up our game, and this is going to be part of our effort to be more strategic. And of course, we know that these awards help faculty get grants. They help make sure that we are recognized at the national and international level. So you're invited to come on April 25th. I hope you've received your invitation. If you haven't, let me know. We'd love to have you, and if not, we'll let you know about it afterward. Speaking of faculty awards, Sam Chang just continues to knock it out of the park. You know that she's our director of the Writers' Workshop. She recently won the Anisfield Wolf Book Award, which is a national award established in 1935. It recognizes books that contribute to appreciation of diversity of human cultures. And you can see some of the previous award winners up on the screen. She won this award for The Family Chow. If you haven't read the book, I really encourage you to get it and read it. It's fascinating. It's different than anything she's written before, and it's being recognized across all kinds of award categories. And she's, so it's great to have a director of the Writers' Workshop who's growing the workshop, increasing its philanthropic support, and writing award-winning books on the side. I don't know how she does it, but she's fabulous. So we also were well represented in the Academy Awards this year. So we pay attention to these kinds of things because of our writing across the university, and this year 2 of our alums were very involved in award-winning films. Joe Russo was a co-producer for Everything Everywhere All at Once. Don't know if you've seen the film, but that film really just knocked it out of the park. Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actress, Best Supporting Actor. I could go on. They kind of won a lot of awards, and he was very much a part of that movie getting produced. And Samuel Hunter was a screenwriter for The Whale, another movie that was recognized with several awards, including Best Actor and Best Makeup and Hairstyling, another great movie to watch if you haven't seen them. So we love it when we were just out in LA celebrating. We had a lot of screenwriters come to one of our receptions. We've got Hawkeyes in Hollywood, and it's pretty amazing, and they're helping each other and obviously becoming a really important part of television and film success. I'm going to end with just talking a little bit about athletics. I would be remiss if I didn't emphasize some of our success. Men and women's track and field are highly ranked again this year. Our baseball team has gotten off to a great start. They beat the #1 ranked LSU team recently. Of course, wrestling continues to be a signature program, ranked 2nd in the country Real Woods just finished second in the nation, as did the entire program. They want to be first. We'll continue to help them do that, but second is pretty darn good in wrestling. And of course, you all know women's wrestling is on the cusp, and they've been recruiting an amazing set of women wrestlers for that program. And I can't help but just point out women's basketball sort of did some big things this year. We were all very excited to be a part of the Final Four. And this is just one of the many kind of outcomes of being in the Final Four. This was, everybody records everything in sports, collects tons of data. But one of the things you may not know about is that there are people checking how much social media is on fire during these events. And this was just one of the very many tallies that shows how active our fan base is. These were social media activities around the top 4 teams, Instagram posts, Twitter posts, that and the like, and look at how high we are compared to the other 3 in terms of activity. And that, for me, that is every bit. That's advertising for us and promotion for us and for the state of Iowa, frankly. The last game, as you know, didn't turn out quite like we hoped, but there were almost 10 million viewers for that final game, more than for the NHL Stanley Cup game, more than the Sugar Bowl game, more than the Orange Bowl game, and every Major League Soccer game ever. So everybody's talking about how much joy and attention the women's basketball team promoted this year. And I guess I want to say, and I hope you feel this too, it's not just what they do on the court, it's what they do off the court as well. The team is as amazing as they appear, and they become role models for women's sports and for young children, girls and boys alike. How do you play as a team? How do you keep your head up high, and how do you work in the most respectful way to represent the state and to represent the university? The last thing I'll say is I was at a concert at Hampshire a couple weeks ago where Yo-Yo Ma, the world's greatest cellist, was performing, and he was waxing and waning about how great Iowa City is in terms of creativity and music, and then he stopped in the middle of this and he said, "And what about Caitlin Clark?" So it is truly one of those moments that many, many people are taking joy in, and we're very, very excited to have them. Yes, Caitlin is going to play another year. We hope possibly 2. But more importantly, the whole team and our coaching staff deserves a huge amount of credit for what they've managed to pull together to represent Iowa. I hope you all felt proud during this. Thank you. Those are the end of my remarks. Happy to answer any questions any of you might have.
Any questions?
Thanks for the report. The access for rural students was really interesting. Do you have a sense for what fraction of your students are from rural backgrounds versus urban backgrounds now?
I can get you that data, but I can just point to the First Gen Hawks program, for example. 70% of those students are from rural parts of Iowa. So I don't want to cite a statistic and have it be wrong, but I know that for the First Gen Hawks program, 70% are coming from rural parts of Iowa. It's a higher percent than a lot of those other institutions that you saw on the screen, and I think part of the reason that we were invited to join this collaborative is we have a lot of rural students, we have success with rural students, and they know about the First Gen Hawks program too.
Great. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
President Nook?
Well, good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity to present to you a little bit about the University of Northern Iowa. I want to add my thanks to Regent Boettger for all that you've done for this state, and especially for our students here at the University of Northern Iowa and at all of the Regent institutions and the schools, the blind and sight-saving schools as well. So thank you very, very much. Later today, my presentation is going to be a little different than normal. Later today, you're going to receive and hear a little bit about the economic impact statements and the return on investment that each of our institutions has, and as a Regent system that we have on this state, you're going to see a lot of numbers. You're going to hear about the return on the investment to the individual students in terms of the tuition that they pay, and then the benefits that come from that. You'll hear also about the return on the investment that the state makes and the dollars that are returned from that investment by the state. But oftentimes these economic impact statements, they measure the things that can be measured, but there's so many things that happen through education, the way that we touch people's lives, that aren't able to be articulated, to be measured, to be graphed, to be charted. And I want to spend just a little time thinking and talking about those. They are mentioned in those economic impact statements, but they're almost lost in there because they are simply mentioned and we can't measure them, we can't touch them, but they have very major impacts. So with that, I want to talk, to begin with, look at these investments and look at some of the investments that we know about and some that are really missed in an economic impact statement. Our students, of course, are the first that we think about when we think about the investments in education. And oftentimes, what we're looking at with a return on an investment is helping students, families, even our legislature, people around the state understand that the dollars that a student contributes to their education have a positive return to them personally. We are all, whenever we make an investment, asking the question, will it have a return that's positive? Is it worth the investment? Our economic impact statements show that each of our institutions, the answer to that is yes, and it's significant. It's not just a small return, it is a huge return financially to them. There are, however, some other investments that are being made besides their investment in tuition and fees. There are lost wages, and those are calculated in these reports that you will see. But they also make investments in time and their talent. Instead of working full-time and in a career early on, they're committing that time to classroom. But they're also committing their time and their talents to campus involvement activities. They're getting engaged in professional activities through professional societies on our campus. They're getting engaged in student activities on our campus. They're getting involved in professional organizations. Many of them are presenting their research at national meetings and getting involved in other ways, internships, investing their time and their talent in those, but also in our communities through events like Pack the Dome, where we have students come in and help us create backpacks that will serve students in high schools and grade schools that are food insecure, but other community engagement opportunities as well. The state, of course, makes a great deal of investment in higher education, and it's easy to see those dollars that come in and support tuition, the state appropriation, the dollars that come in and support the building of our facilities, whether those are buildings, the grounds, those sorts of things. But the state also makes an investment in the infrastructure that isn't physical. The seating of a board of regents, the time and investment that each of you has made to our students and to our institutions, each of our institutions, is put together by the state. It's an investment that the state makes. But another investment, another group of people investing, and we never really calculate this investment, and there's not a good way to put a dollar value on it, is the investment that faculty and staff make in their students. You all know it. You hear about it often. You hear about it from the students. I know you heard about it this morning from many of the students, what the faculty and staff do to support them. You hear about it from our faculty and staff. You'll hear about it from staff members a little bit later as well. But not only do they commit to teaching, to advising, but there's so many other things. Working directly with students on research collaborations, mentoring them professionally, mentoring them personally, how they develop their lives, not just as professionals and in their careers, but what they do away from work, the things they do to build stronger communities, the things they do to build stronger families, the things they do to really grow their personal life. And the final group of investors really are private investors, and we think of them generally on the surface, and they're not captured in the economic impact statements. But we think of them as investing in scholarship dollars. But they're also investing in our programs and our faculty, real dollars, to help support our faculty and staff to develop these programs. But they also invest their time and their talent. Many of them are serving on our advisory boards. Some of them are sitting in front of me right now, investing time in this way. They're actively mentoring many of our students. Without remuneration for that. They're serving throughout our institutions to help support these students. So there are many investments that you can't see in an economic impact statement that I think it's important for all of us, and I mean the people that are sitting in front of me, behind me, but also the people across this state to understand there's much more to this enterprise than can be captured in an economic impact statement. So investments are there that are very, very real, but they're not measurable, and they aren't going to show up in a statement like this. There are also returns on those investments, and the returns are pretty easy to see in terms of the financial returns. But there are some that that are perhaps even more important. This slide shows some private returns that we need to think about, and they're returns that I know all of you are very aware of and that our state is following. For one, the number of jobs, the percentage of jobs that are coming open in the state of Iowa and really across our country is shifting. It's becoming more and more the case that some education beyond high school is important to find the jobs that are out there. And in particular, a larger percentage of jobs where they're growing the fastest are when they require a 4-year degree. And you can see some of the numbers here, how fast the requirements for education, post-secondary education have grown, especially recently. The thing that often gets pointed out in these economic impact statements and returns on investment, and they show up in these economic reports that you have, is the difference in lifetime income. And it used to be a decade ago, as I was making a similar presentation on economic impacts in another state, the difference between a person with a high school education, a person with a 4-year education was $1 million. It's now grown to $1.2 million, and it's continuing to increase. That gap is widening. More and more, if a financial return is what's really important to you, to your family, a 4-year degree is a big step up in that. Those are captured in the economic impact statements, but there are some things that are not in these statements. One of them is unemployment. Somewhat tangentially captured in there in these economic numbers. But over the past 30 years, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that people without a college degree had unemployment rates less than 4% in only 3 years out of 30. Over the same 30-year period, people with a college degree had unemployment rates over 4% only 3 years out of the 30. It's a big difference. And when you look at the gap, the range between those who have a college degree and those that don't, that range over the 30-year period stretched from 2 percentage points to 9 percentage points. That's a big difference in impact on a family. Not just their finances, but the stress levels on those families as well. Crime statistics are the same. Crime statistics are very, very old. It's one of the reasons I haven't put any data in here, really, because they go back almost 2 decades to get solid numbers. But at that time, 46% of the population in state and federal prisons had a high school diploma or less, while only 12.7% had a college degree. College degrees really are important in so many, many ways. We also know that they impact healthcare statistics. People with college degrees, of course, have a higher income level, more likely to have health insurance, more likely to see their doctors in timely fashion, and consequently have much, much less spending on their health care as well. And we also see, and has been documented, that people with college degrees beyond high school, are much more likely to be engaged in their communities, to serve on boards, to serve their communities and to help build parks, to become city council members, elected officials, and so on and so forth. So the returns go well beyond what we see in an economic impact statement. I want to share with you a couple of our alums that really put an exclamation point on some of the things that I've been pointing out. I'll introduce to you first William Burt, and some of you know William Burt. In fact, some of you were sitting, I've got the video, a couple of you were sitting right in front of him when the governor introduced him at her Condition of the State address a couple of years ago. William Burt is a UNI alum, graduated in 2014 with Health, Recreation, Community Services degree. William Burt spent much of his younger life in and out of prison, 20 years or so in and out of the prison system here in the state of Iowa. At one point while he was in prison, he was visited by his family and his young son. His First child was born when Mr. Burt was 14 years old, his second when he was 16. His young son said to him, "Dad, you say that we're the most important thing in your life. If we're the most important thing in your life, why aren't you with us?" And it changed his life, and he realized that his son was right, and he decided he's going to make a difference. While he was in prison, he was cutting prisoners' hair, and he got really good at it. And he realized that cutting hair was more than about cutting hair, it was about building relationships. When he got out, he got a degree from Hawkeye first, and got a certificate, a license, so that he could cut hair. And he had this really great idea. He was going to have a mobile barber shop, because there were people in our community that couldn't get to a barber shop to get a haircut because of physical limitations, because of financial limitations. And so he bought a van, invested his own money and bought a van. But then he found out that it wasn't legal to cut hair in a mobile facility. But it was legal in other states. And so he gathered a group of people around him, met with the governor, met with other people, and got the law changed so that now mobile facilities to cut hair are legal, are possible. And he runs Cut Kings and goes around not only our community but other places, from retirement homes to individual people's homes who can't get out of their homes, can't travel, and cuts hair and runs this as a nonprofit organization. Mr. Burt was actually in Oksana Grbojevich's master's degree program, and as part of that, they were doing a community engagement with the People's Clinic in our community. And as they were meeting, Oksana was serving on the board at that time, board of directors for the People's Clinic, but Mr. Burt engaged so heavily with the clinic that she decided to step down from the board so that Mr. Burt could take a position on the board. And Mr. Burt now serves as a board of directors member on the People's Clinic in Waterloo. Just not long after the March 10th, 2020 event, when the governor signed the proclamation legalizing mobile barbershops, she called him to let him know that his rights to vote had been restored. He had made all these changes in the legislature without being able to legally cast a ballot. And now he has had those rights restored. The impact of education is huge on Mr. Burt's life. All three of Mr. Burt's children, William Burt Jr., Cintisha, and Devian Campbell, have all graduated from the University of Northern Iowa because their father got dedicated to his education, because their father and this state and the individuals we named earlier made an investment in Mr. Burt and helped him get to this point. So the education, the investment has a payoff that can never be measured in the life of the state. I want to introduce you also to Angela and Gina Weekly. They're members of our community too. They grew up in a single family, a single parent home, and both of them will tell you neither of them had any idea that they would ever go to college. In fact, they were never even thinking about it until Angela, the older of the two, happened to connect somehow with our educational talent search, which is run through UNI Center for Urban Education, funded through a federal grant, federal TRIO grant. The education talent, she got involved in education talent search and classical upward bound. The entrance requirements for this are really pretty simple. You have to be low income, and you have to be a first-generation student, and you have to demonstrate potential for college. And she was able to meet all of those and got into first education talent search and then classical upward bound. From there, she realized that she'd always wanted to be a teacher. She didn't realize she needed a college degree. She went on and got her bachelor's degree from Wartburg College. And after that, followed up and got a master's degree in education and ed leadership, in particular from the University of Northern Iowa in 2010. She's now serving as the community inclusion manager for Veridian Credit Union. As she says, I'm still teaching, helping people understand what's going on in the banking world, but also what's going on to help grow the businesses and serve the community better as a bank. Gina's the one, though, that's interesting to talk to, because Gina is the one that will say if Angela had not made that step, she never would have even thought about college. The impact of Angela's entry into higher education through education talent search and classic upward bound made it clear to Gina that education was something that she was really had to to engage in. She too went in through Education Talent Search and Classic Upward Bound. She's now the co-founder and CEO of Weekly Connections, LLC, that works with businesses on leadership development and diversity and inclusion objectives. She's also the coordinator for diversity, equity, and inclusion for Central Rivers AEA. Gina and Angela both have spoken on our campus several times and talk about the impact that education has made to their family as other members of their family have gone on to education, as they've been able to open up and serve their communities in ways that just were not possible without the education, the professional experiences that they gained through education at UNI, Wartburg, Hawkeye. Those have been life-changing events, not just for them, for siblings, and for descendants as well. So today, as people across this state, you see and hear about our economic impacts. I hope that as people read these, they will see the faces and hear the voices of individuals who invested in their education. I hope they will also recognize the investments made by taxpayers. It's documented in there. It's important. It changes lives. I also hope that they will recognize the investments in time and talent and treasures made by you, by other donors, and by our faculty and staff to make sure that these students get the education that they need, that will transform their lives and help transform our state. So to the 9 of you, thank you for the investment that you have made in individual students through your service here. Thank you for the investment you've made in all of us as faculty and staff at the Regent institutions to be able to do this work and to continue to invest our time, our energy, our treasures in these students and consequently the development of our communities and the development of our state. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? President Nook?
Thank you.
Very good. At this time, I'd like to recognize Dr. Peter Dorhout, VP of Research at ISU, who will introduce the research presentation.
Good morning, and Regent Boettger, thank you so much for your leadership and service over the years. Like you, my wife and I are from Illinois, and we were drawn twice to Iowa by Iowa State University, so thank you for your many years of service. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce you to Dr. Paul Plummer, who is our Associate Dean for Research and Graduate Studies at the College of Veterinary Medicine, where he's the professor and Anderson Chair of Veterinary Science in the Department of Veterinary Diagnostic and Production Animal Medicine. He also serves as the Executive Director for the National Institute for Antimicrobial Resistance Research and Education, also known as NIAMRI. That's an institute that's hosted right here at Iowa State University and housed in our Iowa State University Research Park. NIAMRI is a national coalition, and you'll hear more about this, of 41 academic, industry, and government partners, including our Regents partner, University of Iowa. Iowa State was selected to lead this institute in a national competition in 2018. Paul's academic role is both as a board-certified food animal internal medicine and infectious disease specialist, coupled with a PhD in veterinary microbiology, an Iowa State alumnus. His leadership of an active research laboratory and NIAMRI place him at the important intersection of basic and translational research that's focused on antimicrobial resistance. In addition, he has served as a voting member on the Presidential Advisory Council for Combating Antimicrobial Resistant Bacteria, also known as PACCARB, for the last 3 years. And last month, he was appointed as the chair of PACCARB. Dr. Paul Plummer.
Thank you, Dr. Torhout. I appreciate the opportunity to visit with you this morning and talk about a subject that I'm quite passionate about, and so look forward to sharing that with you. So this topic of antimicrobial resistance, let's jump in first on what is that. That's a big term that sometimes can be daunting. So antimicrobial resistance occurs when a germ, in this case often bacteria or fungi, develop the ability to defeat the drugs that were designed to kill them. And so we use antibiotics in common medicine, both in humans, animals, and in plants, to control disease. And so antimicrobial resistance, sometimes abbreviated as AMR, occurs when those drugs that used to work stop working. The problem is that our bacteria and fungi are developing resistance at a rate that outpaces our ability to develop new antibiotics. And this is leading to situations in each of those health sectors where we become unable to treat that infectious disease because the antibiotics are not effective. Now, antimicrobial resistance is not a new phenomenon. This has been occurring since before we even discovered antibiotics. Sir Alexander Fleming, who's widely recognized as the discoverer of penicillin, in his Nobel Prize speech addressed this exact issue, because within days of identifying penicillin, Fleming also identified resistant organisms to that antibiotic. We then entered a phase of rapid development of new classes of antimicrobials. So penicillin was commercialized during World War II, had massive impacts on the health of our soldiers that were wounded during the war and others around the world. And so we entered an era of continued antibiotic development. The challenge that we've now faced, though, is that antibiotic development pipeline is going dry. Almost all of our major pharmaceutical companies have divested in their antibiotic development pipelines because it simply does not provide a return on investment. When we identify a new class of antimicrobials, the public health recommendation, CDCs and others, is to put those new antimicrobials on the shelf behind lock and key and reserve them appropriately for only the situations where they're required in order to slow the development of resistance. But by doing so, you take a drug that potentially took $1 billion to get to market and end up treating a handful, less than 10 patients within a year with that drug, and it becomes simply impossible to get a return on investment. So most pharmaceutical companies have transitioned to their R&D pipelines to drugs that patients go on and stay on for the rest of their lives. Cholesterol drugs, diabetes drugs, chemotherapies, those types of products where you can get a longer investment on return on investment. So again, the issue is not the emergence of resistance, it's that our development of new antibiotics can't keep up with bacteria's ability to develop the resistance to them. To put this into perspective, I've put a slide up here of some data that was published early last year looking at the global burden of antimicrobial resistance in 2019. You can see there in a different color that the directly attributable deaths globally to antimicrobial resistance were about 1.5 million globally, surpassing HIV and malaria. And the deaths associated with antimicrobial resistance, so these would be deaths, for instance, where a patient was sick with another disease process, cancer, something like that, and then acquired an antimicrobial resistant infection, and that ultimately led to their demise, are up over 4.5 million. Again, to put that into context, if we look 1 year later, in 2020, the global COVID death rate was at about 2 million patients. So even the previous year, deaths associated with antimicrobial resistance were more than twice that of what we saw in the first year of the COVID pandemic. And this pandemic continues. Even we can't vaccinate our way out of it, and so this pandemic continues despite all the efforts that we put into it. So this is a crisis we cannot ignore. And in fact, the quote here you'll see from the Director General of the World Health Organization recognizes this point that if we do not take coordinated action, antimicrobial resistance will take us back to a time when people feared common infections and risked their lives with minor surgery. You likely have seen some of this in the lay press articles like these. Could antibiotic-resistant superbugs become a bigger killer than cancer? Our antibiotics are no match for superbugs, and it's a global crisis, the UN report says. And then antibiotic resistance as a bigger threat than climate change, the chief medic in UK identified. So the lay press is picking up on this issue and is becoming a significant issue globally that has to be addressed. The G7 just held a global meeting specifically focused on antimicrobial resistance. Importantly, antimicrobial resistance is what we call a One Health issue, and that stems from the fact that the antibiotics that we use in humans, animals, and our plants are all in the same classes and same drugs. So as we use them in any one of those sectors, emergence of resistance that comes from use in one of those sectors has the potential to impact all of the other sectors. So when we approach this issue, we can't simply look at it from a human health perspective or a veterinary perspective. We have to take a holistic approach. And as you can imagine, that's quite complicated to get everybody on board and looking in the same direction. So the issue that was identified by the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities and the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges in 2018 was the need to somehow foster these cross-disciplinary efforts to address this issue of antimicrobial resistance. And so they identified the possibility of establishing a national organization to help stakeholders locate those resources, build those collaborative networks, and work collaboratively to build consensus across human, animal, and environmental and crop health. That was the genesis of NIAMRI, the National Institute for Antimicrobial Resistance Research and Education, with the goal of coordinating action to combat the global threat of antimicrobial resistance. In the summer of 2018, Iowa State University was selected to lead the National Institute for Antimicrobial Resistance Research and Education out of 9 applications, and it was started housed at the Iowa State Research Park. Collectively, with others that had applied to host, we developed a vision and mission that really is focused on becoming trusted leaders in coordinating that One Health effort to preserve the ability to prevent and to treat infectious diseases for generations to come, and focusing on building those cross-sector relationships in that One Health space to address this. Now, after having founded in 2019, we consist of 41 members at present that represent academia, industry, and nonprofits. I've included the academic members on this slide as I felt like that was the ones that would be most of interest to this audience. You can see the founding leadership across the top there, APLU and AAVMC, certainly for their leadership. However, they did not have any money to give with this award. And so Iowa State University, appreciate the support from Dr. Wintersteen and the provost, as well as the University of Nebraska-Lincoln provided the funding to initiate the first 3 years of the Institute and get the ball rolling. And now we've developed into a model where we continue to be self-sufficient. We take a broad approach in our efforts to address antimicrobial resistance. And by that, I mean we don't focus solely on research related to directly that resistance in bacteria. Instead, we spend significant time focusing on advocacy, policy work at the national and international level, and we also collectively bring in many other fields that are relevant to this space. Vaccine technologies that impact our ability to prevent disease and thus reduce the use of antibiotics. Precision medicine and precision health approaches, precision agricultural approaches that help us limit the application of antifungals in crops or identify sick animals earlier. And certainly diagnostics play a huge role in this space. So all of that comes together in helping us to address how do we keep these antibiotics continuing to be effective. NIAMRI has also allowed us to aid Iowa State as well as our member organizations in developing and growing national and international leadership in this space. One of those opportunities that Dr. Dorhout mentioned was it was my honor to be nominated by APLU and President Wintersteen 3 years ago to serve on the Presidential Advisory Council for Combating Antimicrobial Resistant Bacteria. I've served in that capacity as a voting member for the last 3 years, and last month was announced by HHS Deputy Secretary Andrea Palm as the incoming chair for PACCARB. To tell you a little bit about what PACCARB does, this slide very briefly describes how PACCARB's role is to advise, inform, and recommend the federal government on the topics of antibiotic effectiveness, innovation, education, antibiotic stewardship, international coordination, prevention, and surveillance. We do that through a combination of voting members, liaison members, and then federal government representatives. And our role is to inform the policy, to inform Secretary Boettger, HHS, as well as the President of the United States on our policy recommendations related to antimicrobial use and stewardship, as well as to advise strategy to the CARB task force, that's Combating Antimicrobial Resistant Bacteria Task Force, that consists of representatives from all federal agencies associated with this. We also obviously support advocacy and direct research topics and research areas that need further interest. So with that, I'm pleased to answer any questions you have on this topic. I've also included my contact information and would be happy if you have questions later.
I just have a very high-level question. You mentioned that the amount of research being done on new antibiotics is not as great as the rapid change, and that they put them on the shelf, and I understand that. If they were able to make a financial benefit, could new vaccines, antibiotics be made faster than they are now, or is it or are you always chasing your tail question?
Sure, that's a great question, and the answer is yes, we do believe that there are ways to bring new antibiotics to market. What has to change is the value proposition for how we do that. So as we sit here today, there's legislation in Congress in DC that a variety of different approaches that incentivize these. So one in particular is called the Pasteur Act. Basically, the Pasteur Act proposes to provide an upfront sum of money to any company that develops a new antibiotic that moves through FDA approval and goes on the market, and basically there your return on investment. So those are potential investments of up to $1 billion to get a new drug on market. That has not passed, and we'll see. There's other models that are being considered to encourage that pipeline. An example there will be what's called a subscription model, where healthcare providers and hospitals would pay a flat fee per year to have access to that antibiotic, regardless of where whether they used it or not. The challenge is right now, our drug return on investment is focused on doses. We get paid, companies get paid by the dose. So if you develop a new drug and you're going to use it in 5 patients a year, you're not going to make money back, even if you charge them an exorbitant amount. This really is, it's been a kind of compared to the fire alarm or fire extinguisher type of situation. We need these drugs to be prepared for the emergency, as we already have certain diseases. Gonococcus is one of those right now, that we have many patients for which no antibiotic is effective, and we have no treatment options at that point. Other questions?
Are there examples of that kind of subscription model in medicine now?
So the only place where that exists is it's being piloted in the UK starting 1 year ago. So we don't have data on that yet. But that is where somehow we have to decouple dosing to return on investment. We have had accelerator programs. So there is an accelerator program called CARB-X that's designed to accelerate research and innovation. That's mostly startup companies that are in this space. They have been able to accelerate and get 3 new drugs to market within the last 5 years. All of those companies have gone bankrupt within 2 years of FDA approval. So again, when we stay in that old model of a dose use, because the intentionality is when we get that new drug, if we start using it everywhere, resistance develops. So we want to reserve it for the cases we have to, and you can't make the investment back if that's how you're getting charged or how you're charging.
Pretty interesting topic. Yeah, appreciate it.
I appreciate the time.
your work on it.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. We're going to take a 10-minute break, and we'll resume, well, let's make it 12. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. We'll resume the meeting as soon as we get a quorum here. We'll resume our Regents meeting. At this time, I'd like to recognize Board Counsel Amy Clays.
Thank you, President Richards. Each Regent institution has groups of faculty and staff who are not organized for collective bargaining purposes. Representatives from these groups have been invited to give presentations on FY24 salary policies. The first speaker will be Anna Rodriguez on behalf of the University of Iowa Faculty Senate.
Thank you. Good morning, dear members of the Iowa Board of Regents. My name is Ana Rodriguez, and I am an associate professor in the Department of Spanish and Portuguese at the University of Iowa and Faculty Senate President. I've had the pleasure of meeting several of you through University of Iowa events, football games, and mutual acquaintances. And first and foremost, I would like to thank you for all you do on behalf of the state's Regent institutions and for providing time today to address faculty salary and compensation. It is a real pleasure to be speaking to you while representing my colleagues, the wonderful faculty of the University of Iowa. And for me, a first-generation college student who arrived in the United States from Spain in 1996 to pursue her dream of getting a PhD and becoming a professor, representing the faculty at the University of Iowa, is a real honor. And as is being a member of the amazing group of faculty who work tirelessly for our students, for the university, and for our fellow people in the state of Iowa. The University of Iowa needs to keep attracting and retaining the most talented faculty. And in order to do this, we need to have competitive salaries at the level of our peers for the sake of the university and especially of our students who deserve the best faculty working with them. Currently, salaries of the university's full-time tenure and tenure-track faculty, as well as salaries of instructional faculty, rank between number 8 and number 10 out of 11 peer institutions. Faculty are the creators of an environment where students can discover and fulfill their potential. Only with superb, excellent faculty will the university continue to be one of the most distinguished public universities in the country. Our professors are passionate, mission-driven educators who want their students to succeed. Faculty are uniquely positioned to build the trusting and consistent relationships necessary for students to start strong, to engage in their studies, persist to graduation, and contribute to the success of the whole state of Iowa. Frequent informal and collegial interactions with faculty provide the students with necessary levels of support and personal mentoring to achieve their academic goals. And in addition to intellectual engagement with the subject matter, both in and outside the classroom, interactions from formal student organizations and letters of recommendations to casual and spontaneous conversations introduce an inspirational support structure into the life of the students during a transformative phase in their lives. How many students have been inspired to be a writer after discussing literature with Melissa Phoebus or Samantha Cheng? How many have decided to be a nurse after witnessing the passion of the nursing faculty in our Bachelor of Science in Nursing, ranked #1 in the country? And how many have decided to study abroad and bring back with them a new language, a better informed knowledge of another country, after they got excited and motivated by a professor of Spanish, French, Russian, Japanese, or any of the 11 different languages taught at the University of Iowa. Every faculty member of the university community has the capacity and the desire to make a difference in the lives of the students they encounter and in the lives of people across the state of Iowa, excuse me, through their work with the students and also with the research, which impacts all of our lives with findings in a diversity of fields, from business and law to the health, natural, mathematical, and social sciences, the arts, and the humanities. Our faculty are diverse in many ways, including their backgrounds and their research, which very often has an international component and plays a pivotal role in connecting Iowa, the state of Iowa, to the world. Outside of the US, Iowa is well known for the groundbreaking artistic, scientific, or humanistic work that takes place in the Regents institutions. We are the state where James Van Allen, a space pioneer and longtime distinguished professor of physics in the University of Iowa, changed forever how space is understood and analyzed around the world. We are the state of the Iowa Writers' Workshop, and we are the state where top research on water and its use and dangers is done at the University of Iowa Hydroscience and Engineering Lab. Hundreds of students benefit from these international connections and Iowa's reputation, enabling them to embark on their journey to make their own global impact. President Wilson already mentioned the Fulbright program. It's a good example of what I'm trying to convey today. The UI has been named the top producer of Fulbright US students for the last 7 years. This is very amazing. The very prestigious Fulbright program was established more than 75 years ago to increase mutual understanding between the people of the US and other countries. Last year, 17 of our students were selected by the Fulbright program to teach English abroad and to undertake public health, research, and creative writing projects in 16 countries. This would not be possible without faculty efforts. We have built an amazing UI Fulbright team over the past 10 years, consisting of 2 advisors, a librarian, an alumni network of recent Fulbright students and faculty, and 46 faculty members who are fully committed to guiding our students to be successful as they pursue this amazing opportunity. The lasting impact of the Fulbright program on our students is invaluable. Once they receive the Fulbright, awardees move forward to achieve their professional goals with the support of a network that includes heads of state and Nobel Prize winners. Living and working in another country for a year offers wonderful opportunities for the students to learn, research, teach, create, and form wonderful relationships that put Iowa on the map, nationally and internationally. This is just one example of the rippling effect of the work of faculty and their immense impact in our students' lives. Thank you again for everything you do for the state Regents institutions. Faculty at the University of Iowa share your enthusiasm, your commitment, and your passion for supporting higher education in our state. We would like to humbly ask for your continued support to be able to recruit and retain top faculty, top quality faculty, and we're also welcome any opportunities to work together to keep giving our university faculty a reason to be proud to work in Iowa and work for Iowa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next presenter is Jacqueline Kleppe on behalf of the University of Iowa Staff Council.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, President Richards. Good morning, President Pro Tem Bates, and to the members of the Board of Regents. My name is Jackie Kleppe, and I am speaking today as President of the University Staff Council of the University of Iowa. I also work as the Director of Outreach and Engagement in the University of Iowa Healthcare Marketing and Communications Division of Outreach and Engagement. I would like to start by thanking the board for all of your work on behalf of the state of Iowa Regents institutions. We appreciate your support of higher education and healthcare initiatives. I'm personally grateful to be part of our campus community. As a lifelong Iowan, a University of Iowa alumna, and a longtime full-time staff member, my roots run deep to the state and to this institution. As a first-generation college student from small-town rural Iowa, I entered a large collegiate environment that was well outside of the norms of where and how I grew up. I was welcomed here almost 30 years ago as a student and grateful for the opportunities I had as an undergraduate that gave me the mindset and skills to succeed, and grateful for the opportunities to develop my professional career at Iowa the past 24 years. To say the University of Iowa and its people have had a profound impact on my life is an understatement. The faculty and staff continue to have this impact on students today, welcoming more than 5,000 new Hawkeyes to campus this year. I'm not alone in sharing my deep passion and commitment to our institution. Over and over, I hear fellow staff members share their love of working at the University of Iowa and in supporting the mission, vision, and values. A staff member who just celebrated her first year working at Iowa says she loves that she has the ability to make an impact on the mission of the UI by performing the best that she can in her role. Another staff member shares, "I love working at the UI because there's a feeling of family where everybody is there for each other." And another one says, "At Iowa, I enjoy a career that keeps me challenged and engaged and allows me the opportunity to improve the daily work experience for my department and our patients." These are dedicated staff that in a time where we hear about quiet quitting and the great resignation are stepping up, leaning in, and making an impact that extends far beyond their division, their department, and our university. Our staff continue to make an impact. We continue to do more with less. The budget constraints faced by the University of Iowa have meant that many of the vacated positions have not or will not be filled, putting additional duties and responsibilities without additional compensation on the shoulders of our staff. This affecting both our mental and financial health, and I'm concerned. Overall health and well-being are strategic priorities for our university. The financial health and well-being of our staff is critical to the success of those priorities. I'm here to advocate on behalf of the 8,000 staff and happy to provide statistics if helpful, but frankly speaking, staff are struggling financially. With the cost of living increases and inflation, staff are finding it difficult to provide the basic necessities of living. Take one of my staff colleagues, for example, a young professional about to complete her second year as a full-time staff member. She came to Iowa as a student and chose to stay here in Iowa to pursue her career. However, last year she needed to move in with a colleague because she couldn't afford to live on her own. She's concerned she'll never be able to afford to buy her own home given her current salary and the rising cost of living. While the annual inflation rate is slowing, food prices continue to be high. Of the people seeking additional support through the University of Iowa Food Pantry, 1 in 3 are faculty and staff members. Some staff are struggling to put food on the table, and many with families. Some staff are working second jobs, which has been distracting them from work. More staff are seeking mental health resources and using our employee assistance programs for support. Our Staff Council has prioritized mental health and well-being in our education and engagement efforts with staff, and while those efforts support our mental health initiatives, it doesn't address the financial struggles which drives much of that stress. As state appropriations have declined, we ask that you continue to advocate to our state elected officials for their full support in higher education initiatives at our public institutions, including supporting the financial health and well-being of our employees. I ask you to consider the dedication and unwavering commitment that our professional and scientific staff provide that demonstrate great impact on the success of our university and the subsequent effect that success has on our state. We are seeking your ongoing support to ensure that staff salaries can be treated competitively and in alignment with the rising costs of living. To continue to support robust benefit packages, flexible and supportive employee policies, and consider additional benefits such as employee tuition assistance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today, and thank you for all that you do to support students, staff, and faculty at the University of Iowa and for the citizens of the state of Iowa. Thanks.
Thank you. The next presenter is John Perkins on behalf of Iowa State University Faculty Senate.
President Richards, members of the Board of Regents, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Dr. John Perkins. I'm a tenured associate professor of accounting in the Ivy College of Business at ISU, as well as the president of the ISU Faculty Senate. I've had the pleasure of talking to you at past board meetings, as well as working with several of you on the board's recent distance education digital delivery task force, and would like to speak to you today regarding salary policies for 2024 on behalf of the wonderful faculty at Iowa State University. Like many Iowans, ISU faculty accepted the need to share in the burden of getting through the COVID-19 pandemic. They feel fortunate that they're not as badly off as some of their colleagues in other states. Now that the pandemic appears over, however, they're looking forward to better, or at least more normal, times, both personally and professionally. However, from a salary perspective, ISU faculty are concerned about both overall salary levels as well as the recent history of salary adjustments that have not kept up with inflation. Overall, ISU faculty salaries continue to remain at the bottom of our peer group. As you can see from my written comments that table 1, faculty salaries in almost all of ISU colleges are significantly below our peer institutions. In fact, the faculty at the Ivy College of Business, the College of Human Sciences, and the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences have either the lowest or next to lowest salaries when compared with our peer institutions. These comparatively low salary levels make it difficult to compete for new, high-quality faculty. Hiring new high-quality faculty is particularly important in an era when the professoriate is aging and many of them get closer to retirement. In addition to low base salaries, the past 5 fiscal years have seen salary adjustments that have generally not kept up with inflation. In particular, Table 2 of the information I provided show that salary adjustments for the previous 2 fiscal years fell dramatically short of keeping up with inflation to the term of over 6% of a differential, resulting in large effective salary decreases. I am very concerned that as a result of our low salary levels and history of low salary adjustments, current and prospective faculty will seek better opportunities elsewhere. In many instances, the faculty who will be recruited by other universities are prominent members of the academy who have demonstrated exceptional abilities. Even for loyal faculty who remain, I'm concerned that these issues are having a significant impact on faculty morale. The faculty at ISU are dedicated to teaching, research, and extension and outreach that results in significant contributions to the Iowa economy. However, there is a pervasive sense among the faculty that their hard work is neither understood nor appreciated by the people of Iowa. Last year, ISU adopted a new strategic plan. In that document, Iowa State University's mission and vision are stated as follows. Mission: Iowa State University will create, share, and apply knowledge to make our students, Iowa, and the world better. Vision: Iowa State University will advance the land-grant ideals of putting science, technology, and human creativity to work. In addition, the plan lists 5 aspirational statements that define what ISU desires to be and how the university plans to position itself over the next 9 years. These to-be statements will drive an ongoing strategic process of evaluation and investment. What Iowa State wants to be will compel what Iowa State does to take action to move us closer to our aspirations. In 9 years, ISU strives to be the most student-centric leading research university, to be the university that cultivates a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment where students, faculty, and staff flourish, to be the university that fosters lifelong learning, to be the university that creates opportunities and forges new frontiers, and finally, to be the trusted partner for proactive and innovative solutions. ISU's faculty are instrumental to fulfilling all of these items: mission, vision, and aspirational goals. It is faculty that plan, create, carry out, and administer the academic programs that train the approximately 30,000 undergraduate and graduate students at the university in over 100 majors. It is faculty who plan, create, and direct externally funded research that brings millions of dollars to the university and to the state of Iowa, producing innovation, economic development, and expertise while supporting students and staff. As you can see from the strategic plan, ISU is striving to be much more than the average university. I believe that I can speak for the entire university when I say we very much appreciate your support. However, it's clearly not just about money. I urge you to do everything you can to support our faculty with salaries that allow them to feel that they are not at the bottom of the barrel and show them that their efforts are acknowledged and appreciated. I was a practicing accountant and attorney before entering academia and have been teaching accounting and tax at the university level for now 25 years. I can honestly say that most of us think of faculty salaries, staff salaries, any salaries, as an expense. I believe we should be thinking about it in terms of salaries as an investment in Iowa State University by the people of Iowa, one that has paid very strong dividends in the past. For example, ISU contributed $5 billion to Iowa's economy in fiscal year 2022, accounting for 2.4% of Iowa's total gross product. With your help, we will continue to do so in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. The final presenter is Kristen Kofoot from the University of Northern Iowa Professional and Scientific Council.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Christina Kofoot. I am the Assistant Director for Community Engagement and serve as the Director of the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance program, and currently serve as the President of the Professional and Scientific Staff Council at the University of Northern Iowa. I appreciate your time this morning and the opportunity to speak with you on behalf of approximately 603 full-time professional and scientific staff members across 5 divisions at the University of Northern Iowa. As we begin to realize the new UNI 2023-2028 strategic plan and how it is being rolled out across campus, we are encouraged by the plan's goals and strategies for change. These include a strong emphasis on empowerment, innovation, and effective stewardship of resources, along with efforts to build an inclusive community for faculty, staff, and students. With the implementation of this strategic plan, the Professional and Scientific Staff Council at UNI is working to ensure that our goals for the council coincide with those of the university as a whole. This includes providing information on professional development opportunities for staff members, ensuring that staff are informed of the various councils and committees across campus, and the impact PNS staff members are having in those spaces. The professional and scientific staff at UNI are an integral part of making our university the robust and healthy living learning community that it is. I am proud of the University of Northern Iowa and proud to work at an institution that has not only provided me with an education, but allows me the opportunity to leave a lasting impact on students who pass through. As the Professional and Scientific Staff Council representative, I have been asked to represent my constituents, and they have told me that they are ready for change. I have heard it time and time again that UNI staff members are overworked and underpaid. While the individuals in this room do not dictate professional and scientific salary increases, there may be opportunities to influence decision-making. With that in mind, I would like to share our PNS salary increase request and encourage you to take into consideration the impact of inflation on staff members. Professional and scientific staff members at UNI have requested a 6% across-the-board increase in wages this year. This increase was based on several factors. The Social Security Administration has introduced a cost of living allowance, or COLA, of 8.7% to compensate for inflation increases. The Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, has projected the average United States pay increase to be 4.6%. With the United States inflation traction prices increasing by 13.8% from January 2021 to October 2022, it is costing the average American household $747 per month alone, with an estimated impact of nearly $9,000 annually. Inflation is at a 40-year high for a second year in a row. This 6% increase was found to be a reasonable average between the COLA of 8.7% and SHRM's 4.6% projected increases. The across-the-board request for an increase is due to the unprecedented inflation rates. Regardless of performance appraisals, all professional and scientific staff members are experiencing the impacts of inflation. Professional and scientific staff members at the University of Northern Iowa share a love for the university and those we serve. We understand the importance of higher education and the role we all play. We also understand the restraints of tight budgets and the impact of enrollment rates. However, our dedication to the university may no longer be sufficient to retain the talented staff that we have. The increases in inflation no longer allows individuals to live under the perception of lower wages with the appreciation for the impact we are able to make on our students, faculty, and other staff. As we consider the impacts of inflation, the long-term effects of COVID-19, and the need for greater flexibility, please consider how we can work together to enhance the experience and morale of professional and scientific staff members, not just at the University of Northern Iowa, but across the state, in order to retain employment. I thank you for your time and consideration today.
That concludes the presentations.
Thank you. Are there questions of any of the presenters? Thank you for your work. At this time, I'd acknowledge that Amy Glaze is here, and I'd like also to introduce Christian Bauer, who is Associate General Counsel.
I guess it's still morning. Good morning. We've concluded our collective bargaining for the 2023-2025 negotiations. Just as a reminder, we have 5 contracts with employees with our universities. 2 of them are state-held and 3 of them are Regent-held. We'll start with United Faculty. We agreed to a 3% increase to the base salary. United Faculty has voted on that, so that's good to go. Second, we have SEIU, which is our healthcare, our nurses union with University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. We agreed to a 3% increase to the base, as well as a 3% across the board for both years of the contract. And for COGS, which is our graduate assistants at the University of Iowa, we also did an agreement for a 3% increase to the base, as well as 3% across the board for each year. So those are the 3 that you guys will be voting on today. The other 2 are state-held contracts, where we have the large ASME contract, which has a large number of our merit staff involved. That was a 3% increase to the base for each year. And then our public safety, and as a reminder, our public safety has a broader spectrum of negotiation topics as opposed to the 4 that I just mentioned. So with public safety, there was a 6% increase to their base. And what we did for the first year is something called slotting, where we looked at all of our employees that were covered under the contract and sat down with them, with the union, and went through and had them placed sort of strategically within their grouping. We had run into issues with compression, where we had more senior employees that were smushed up against newer hires, been there different amounts of times. Well, the reason we did that so we could space them out accordingly. So then the second year of the contract, there'll be a 6% increase to the base and a 5% step. And that way they will continue to move in a way that keeps them spaced out, so we aren't running into compression or something they call leapfrogging, where a new hire actually jumps higher than someone who has some seniority. So it was our fix to sit down and work with the union to space them out appropriately, so now it's sort of a clean moving forward and everyone moves sort of in the same way. And that's it. That's all I've got. If you guys have any questions.
Any questions? Regent Lindemeyer.
Kristen, with regard to the wage compression, were there flat raises given at some point that caused the compression,
I
or were
think-
there adjustments to the hiring guide? Or?
I think that the time up until these public safety employees were pulled out, there had been no steps, there had been no adjustments, so they really were all just kind of, and there was advanced wages given, there were different things, so they were hiring people, and it's a really competitive market in public safety right now, so they were trying to fill these positions, and in order to do that, they were giving advanced wage, things like that, so they were all smushed together. So now with this new contract, we're able to really space them out and give them appropriate steps in order for them to keep that compression where it is, or away from where it is, I guess.
Other questions?
It's a legal term, smushed, legal term.
I didn't know it was so humorous. A motion and a second are required to ratify the collective bargaining agreements with COGS for graduate and teaching research assistants at the University of Iowa, UNI United Faculty for faculty at the University of Northern Iowa, and SEIU for tertiary health care employees at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. Is there a motion? Regent Barker?
Second.
Regent Rouse? Second by Regent Rouse. Any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Regent Bates?
Yes.
Regent Boettger?
Yes.
Regent Rouse?
Yes.
Regent Reiswick?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent Crow?
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. Now we'll move on to board policy manual revisions, and once again, we'll recognize Amy.
Thank you, President Richards. The Board Office recently conducted a comprehensive review of Chapter 1.2 of the Board's policy manual. This policy manual chapter addresses the permanent committees of the Board. Board approval of proposed revisions is requested today. These revisions are intended to clarify the structure, organization, and authority of permanent committees of the Board. These revisions were considered as a first reading during the February meeting, and there are no material changes from the first reading. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? We've all had a chance to go over those in detail. A motion and a second are required to approve the Board of Regents policy manual changes as detailed in the docket memo. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Regent Boettger, Regent Dunkel, the second. Any discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Regent Bates?
Yes.
Regent Boettger?
Yes.
Regent Rouse?
Yes.
Regent Reiswick?
Yes.
Regent Dunkel?
Yes.
Regent Barker?
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer?
Yes.
Regent Crow?
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. You barely got it out, I'm sorry. Regent Crow, yes. Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is carried. We will, the person that was intending to present the economic impact study is ill and will not be presenting the study. So unless Mark wants to do it again. Okay. Now, at this time, I'd like to recognize Brad Berg. We had a bond sale.
President Richards and members of the board. This morning, we received bids for bond anticipation notes on behalf of the University of Iowa's parking system. Elizabeth Bergman from Baker Tilly joins me at the table with the results of that bid opening. Elizabeth?
Thank you. Thank you, President Richards and Regents. I'm really delighted to be with you today to deliver another outstanding bond sale. We received 3 bids this morning, with the winning bid on the bond anticipation notes as Wells Fargo at a true interest cost of 3.98, so well below 4%, and given the current market, we thought it would be, oh, hang on, 3.6, sorry, when we downsized it switched a little bit, so 3.6, thank you, Brad. So well below where we expected it to come out, and very competitive as opposed to the next lowest bid from Baird at 3.9%. As part of the process, we also got the ratings from Moody's and S&P affirmed for the University of Iowa, with very positive feedback in terms of enrollment management, financial management, and general overall governance. So I'm pleased to deliver this information to you and answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions about, you'd like to ask either person? It's a pretty successful offering. A motion and second are required to approve the resolution providing for the sale, award, and authorizing the issuance and securing the payment of $56,550,000 parking system bond anticipation project notes, Series SUI 2023, for the purpose of financing a portion of the costs of constructing and equipping a new parking facility at the University of Iowa, funding a capitalized interest fund, and paying the costs of issuance. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Regent Bates,
Second.
Regent Ryswick, seconds. We'll have any further discussion? Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Ryswick,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Bates,
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Boettger,
Yes.
Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. We are going to go in closed session at this time. The board has necessity to meet in closed session for the following reasons. In accordance with Iowa Code Sections 21.5.1.a, to review and discuss the confidential records in the matter of an employee appeal. These records are authorized or required to be maintained as confidential in accordance with Iowa Code 22.7.1 and in accordance, and B, in accordance with Iowa Code Sections 21.5.1.c, to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, and premature disclosure would likely prejudice or disadvantage the position of the board. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session. Is there a motion?
Also move.
Regent Dunkel, is there a second?
I'll second.
Regent Bates, any further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. Regent Bates,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Boettger,
Yes.
Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Barker,
Yes.
Regent Crow,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel? Regent Reiswig?
Yes.
Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is approved. We'll be in closed session, and we'll notify when we're out.
I don't.
This meeting of the Board of Regents is in the open session. Is there a motion before the board?
Yeah. No, sorry. In the matter of the appeal of employee A, I move that the Board of Regents deny the appeal and affirm the final institutional decision in its entirety.
Okay.
I'll second.
Is there further discussion? We'll have a roll call vote. I'm going to start with Regent Lindemeyer,
Yes.
Regent Rouse,
Yes.
Regent Grow,
Yes.
Regent Dunkel,
Yes.
Regent Bates,
Yes.
Regent Boettger,
Yes.
Regent Barker.
Yes.
Regent Ryswick is absent at this vote. Regent Richards votes yes. The motion is carried. Now we have, is there any further business to come before the board? This meeting of the Board of Regents is adjourned.